We live, yeah. Kyla Nuesa, ABM Manager at MongoDB. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kyla, a question I like to ask always, because I think it's quite just a lot of people have funny stories or just like non-conventional stories, is how did you end up in B2B marketing and then specifically account-based marketing?
Okay. So I actually studied marketing in college, but I had moved over to San Francisco for a summer internship when I was 19 years old. I was starting off in investment marketing and finance. I thought I wanted to do finance as my eventual career, but I actually had a mentor at the company tell me to get out of finance as fast as I can and run toward tech, or else my skills were going to become out of date. And I'm really happy that she listened because the job I had after that, I actually worked full time while going to college, was a field marketing role where that company, ServiceNow, was starting off their ABM team. And in my first week of joining, they actually asked if I wanted to get trained in ABM under my amazing manager, Gemma Davies, and start off the ABM team at ServiceNow, which was a crazy experience. I didn't know what ABM was at all. I ended up at a demand based conference, I think about 7 years ago. I got like a notification on my phone a few days ago that it was 7 years ago that I joined the demand based conference and got my ABM certification, which is insane to me. So that's how I got started as a teenager in San Francisco working full time while finishing their degree.
I love that we have a similar story. Well, parallel. I won't go into it, but yeah, I also went down the finance route. But that was my like dad driving me. He was like, so he works in construction, but he was like, work in finance, be like a stockbroker, you'll make lots of money. And then actually, I did a few internships, and they were like, it's going down. You also
Yeah.
want to move to tech. All right, awesome. And then so you joined ServiceNow. They are mammoths when it comes to ABM, right?
Yeah.
I know they're team in Singapore, which is fun. Right, okay, so you're well versed. And today's questions, what we're going to be doing is something a bit different. We're just going to be taking it back to like the basics, the core principles. So we're going to just jump straight into it, the first one now. And challenge one that came in was sales and marketing alignment. So this is ultimately, in my opinion, which is probably wrong, but like the crux of ABM. So, Kyla, what's your process for aligning with sales, and how do you get them on board with your ideas and get
Sure.
them motivated to do what you want them to do?
For sure. So I actually have experience also being a fractional CMO and a consultant. And when I first start this relationship with sales, I like to treat them like I would an internal client of mine. So relationships, they're all about like respect and trust. So I try to get to know them on a personal level first. And from there, I like to figure out what their goals are for the year, whether it be personal or career, figure out like what's motivating them, what's driving them. And I like to align my ABM goals based off of their own. So I know that a lot of people think that ABM runs in parallel with sales, but I really drive my ABM campaigns from sales. So instead of doing it with them, I drive my goals from their own personal career goals. So I think I arrived to that conversation with a bunch of metrics to kind of back my ideas, but I also try to get an idea of how much they truly know about ABM and what I could do to support them. There's a lot of misconceptions about ABM. A lot of salespeople think that I'm adding work to their plate instead of helping support their goals. So I like to bring in metrics, show them some tables, show them the data, and figure out how I could best support them. And I think when they see the value, then like buy-in super easy. The relationship is just built from there. They need to really trust in my expertise. So I go into the conversation confidently. And yeah, I try to just establish that relationship from the beginning.
That's a really nice way to look at it. So I'm visualizing marketing sitting almost just under sales, but like pushing them forward like the engine, really driving them forward. If we're going to get more into like little nitty gritty tactics, technical
Mhm.
stuff to really help some people, what are like the sort of metrics that are important to align on? Because like, or even data, is it
Mhm.
like target accounts? Like what data are you showing them? Is it, hey, if you let me help you by creating personalized content, it's going to make you X more money? Like psychologically, like what are the sort of data points that
Yeah.
help you kind of get that buy-in?
So I know at a lot of companies, sales is paid on partial commission. They have their own goals for each year, whether it be like annual recurring revenue or getting new workloads, design reviews. Depending on what their goal is for that year, I bring in metrics that show what that kind of impact has been from some of the campaigns of the previous year. So, for example, this year I brought to my sales team, if we have these webinars, if we have these in-person events, this is what we could expect the result to be, and this is how it's going to help drive pipeline. Depending on what they care about, so it's going to be different at every company. Some people are really focused on like increasing that deal velocity, and some people are more focused on NAR. So dependent on the company, dependent on the team, I just try to bring in what is most relevant to them.
Okay, I mean that makes total sense. You are right, and not every. There's me saying all salespeople are money hungry. Well, maybe they are, but like you're right, they could be benchmarked off different points.
Yeah.
So that's like an important kind of metrics to have in mind. So challenge 2 is setting ABM objectives. So it kind of ties in, I guess, what you were saying. Almost starting with sales as well, as opposed to like setting your own. But like, how do you decide what? And maybe a good way to frame this, Kyla, not to throw a curveball in the mix here, is like if you were just starting ABM, like what are some good metrics to aim for, or objectives? Sorry, not metrics to aim for.
So at Mongo specifically, we call them our big rocks. So it's going to be our top 3 marketing objectives for that year. What I like to do is I do a whole account research process before deciding my marketing plan and my marketing objectives. This includes like an account deep dive, doing an account interview with maybe the SA, CSM, and sales lead, trying to get all of the account information that they have gotten themselves prior to me arriving, doing my own research, external research. Then from there, I take their personal objectives, figure out what are the trends in the industry, then align my goals to fit theirs. So say I notice that they have a trouble with executive relationships and they're really trying to drive a needle in these 3 areas, but they don't really have that relationship set in stone. I might make one of my objectives for the year to really hone in on executive engagements. So like leaders roundtables, or even like leaders meetings, webinars, just specific toward the leaders. So I really try to do like a whole few week deep dive, at least on my end, before setting my marketing goals and then planning out my marketing calendar for the rest of the year.
That's really interesting. Okay, so it's actually, it's not all about you and what you kind of want to achieve. It's more about aligning with actually the customers and the target accounts, what they're going for, and then kind of like finding a way to work your way in there. That's just a really great frame of mind to think about it.
For sure.
Challenge 3 is, and you touched upon it there, target account selection. So like, what's your process for selecting target accounts?
Yeah, so I like to go, I know there's a bunch of software that you could use these days that will kind of just pinpoint what they feel your target account should be based on like intent signals and account interactions. But once again, sales I view as like my partners, not really only my stakeholders. So I like to get their opinions. I figure out what are the industry trends this year, which of these accounts would really move the needle in the next 6 to 12 months. It doesn't matter if like this is a huge account. If we aren't going to make any progress within the next 6 to 12 months because they have this blocker, this blocker, this blocker, then it's no use putting out content specifically for this account, in my opinion. So I pick like quality over quantity, and I've done it so differently at every single company. So some companies really do focus on revenue and picking like the top 10 accounts that would bring us the most amount of revenue. I have a bunch of different factors that I like to consider, including that how fast can we get this needle moving? How fast can we close on these deals? Because if we do some targeted campaigns to an account that we expect to potentially work with us, or a contract to potentially go through within 6 months, then that to me is more valuable.
So that's awesome for like, well, 2 reasons. But the first is, and I think this is where a lot of people go wrong starting, is they see ABM as like, who can we include in the list, as opposed, it's the same with everything, right? It's the same with ads. It's the same with like automated outreach now. It's like almost just as important to have like an exclusion list when selecting who you're going after. So that's great. The other point, what was I going to say? The other point was, right, so these big accounts that you're excluding that potentially might be 12 months out, obviously not ideal, but do you have, I don't know if we covered this in the next question, but like, what do you not do run? Like, what sort of nurture campaigns, if any, would you run during that time to keep top of mind, or would it more
For
fall
sure.
under like generic demand gen?
Yeah, so I wouldn't technically exclude them entirely. So if I am putting out vertical specific content, obviously I'd still want to hit them with that vertical specific content, industry specific content. I just wouldn't consider them a top account where I'm running like one-to-one campaigns to. So
Oh,
say
okay.
that
Yeah.
I have financial services as my industry and I pick like 5 key accounts that I really want to hone in on for this year. They wouldn't be included on those top 5 accounts, but I still want to hit them with that industry content. So LinkedIn ads, still keeping that relationship warm, keeping us relevant, but just not putting such a focus on the one-to-one for that specific account.
Okay, for sure. I'm with you. Sorry, it's like 6 p.m. here. I think I was being slow. Yes, of course. So
No,
like the
you're all
people
good.
that look like they're going to close within 6 to 12 months, that's where you're supporting sales like 80-90% of the time is going towards there to close those
Yeah,
accounts, but we're not forgetting about the bigger picture.
for
Makes
sure.
total sense. Challenge 4, and you mentioned this as well, like you touched upon this is coming together nicely. Account research, right?
Mhm.
So you've got one to one, which can be, a lot of companies go super deep. You've then got one to few, or as Davis would say at 4Jex, growth ABM, right? One to
Mhm.
what? Few, one to many. Um, what's what's your account research process look like for, I guess, bracket it up into two, one to one, and then also one growth ABM kind of
Yeah.
aspects that would be helpful.
Yeah. So I guess on a one-to-one level, I know the typical answer of doing your own external research, using your intent signals, whatever, bringing that back to sales, starting that conversation. I'm all about efficiency, so I'm not going to present sales with information that they already know. I feel like that would cause them to lose trust in me. I like to start off by learning from what they already have done. So they typically have their own account plans and they've done their own research. I try to have them fill me in on what they already know so that I'm not doubling down on effort. From there, I fill in the gaps. So fill in the gaps with my own research or through more conversations, whether that be through the CSM or the SA, so the solution architect. Um, yeah, so then from there, fill in the gaps, try to figure out what I'm missing to really complete my plans and go from there.
I have so many follow-on questions. I've got to not make this a habit. So what specifically, what does that look like, right? So say you've got an account list of,
Mhm.
let's say 500 people. Let's say it's just 100 people, right?
Okay.
100 accounts. And you want to do like this deduplicating exercise kind of thing.
Mhm.
How are you bringing those accounts to sales? Are you like filtering it in a spreadsheet where it's like, oh, this rep's carrying these 10, focusing on these 10 accounts, this rep's doing these 10 accounts, and then going to them specifically? Or like, because I guess you don't want to overwhelm them with a
Yeah.
massive just sheet of 500 accounts, and then they've got to figure out how are you making it easy for them to collaborate with you and be like, um, tell me what you know? Or is it a case of you just extracting that from the CRM yourself and not actually having those direct conversations with sales? Sorry to get really technical, but
No,
these are
this
the
is
things that like are
yeah.
tactical than technical that
Yeah, this
people
is great.
need help with.
I respect their time. Sales is super busy. I don't want them to feel like I'm giving them more work once again. So I typically introduce myself via Slack or email and be like, I'm going to be your account based marketing manager this quarter, this year. And prior to having a conversation, I'd love to dive into like the research you've already done for your accounts. Can you please share anything that you find valuable for me to like catch up on? So whether that be account plans, slideshows, spreadsheets, master planning doc, or whatever they use to really keep themselves organized. And I go through that like entire doc, fill myself in, take my own notes, drop things into my own marketing plan already. I mean, my current company, Mongo, is great at giving us kind of a template of what that marketing plan would look like. So we're able to iterate from that. But if I know that these are the things that we're looking for this year, I need to know a lot about our partners to see who we're going to collaborate with, need to know a lot about champions, which are the teams that we're really moving the needle on. I'm already outlining that on my end so that I'm not coming into that conversation unprepared. Then from there, whatever gaps I am missing, I do try to have a conversation before trying to figure it out on my own. So I'll set up a meeting with the SA, CSM, and sales lead, sometimes even like the lower level salespeople, so that they could chime in as well. And I try to hear from their perspectives, which everyone has their own perspective. So it's great getting us all like on this call and people are chiming in from different directions on what they feel are like the priorities, who they feel are our priority partners that we really want to collaborate this year. And also just use that time again to like educate them on what we could be accomplishing together and how we're going to work together.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So to start with the framework of like, here is ultimately, it's like almost like a battle card, right? Of like what you need from each account. Go to sales first as a first point, fill it in with as much information as you can, then rely on intent data and third parties. I really don't believe in intent data, but I'm not going to lobby for that today. I do if it's first party intent, but anyway, and then have a group call, collaborate together. One thing that I'm doing, I don't know if you do it, is like any customer calls and things, or any customer research, I now just put it in like a Notion doc and then whack it through ChatGPT. It's really lazy, but like it's in terms of like an agenda, it's more of a like, right, I've got an hour with these people that I need to talk with. Here are like the 4 key themes. So this is what I want to talk about. It's such a good tool, isn't it?
I'm taking the messiest notes known to man and then dropping them in ChatGPT and looking like a rock star afterwards. But
it's so good.
Yeah, I tell like the lower level ABM managers, don't waste your time it also has them instill trust in you. When I'm on a call, for example, and I'm building out an agenda for an event or a webinar, and I'm kind of in the background, not really leading the call. I organized the call, brought in all of these key stakeholders, but typically I know marketing managers would kind of just like sit back, relax, and let them be. But, I'm taking notes. And by the end of that call, I'm sharing my screen and being like, this is what I got from this conversation. Here's the agenda that we're going to be working with. How do you feel about it? Feel free to edit this for like the next 30 minutes or just let me put it on a landing page and like, let's get this rolling. So,
and they're like, how did you put that together so quick?
Yeah, for real.
Oh man, no, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Challenge 5 was engagement channels. So this came in from Janelle Amos. I just kind of tweaked the question a bit, but she asked, when it comes to engagement strategies, what are the top 3 channels you would prioritize and why? Yeah, every company's different for sure, but like, what's your approach?
I would say still email first, because that human touch and the personalization that you're able to get into when you are doing email. So email done right, I think is super effective, like super human, and people still resonate best with like personal human, like micro stories, hyper personalized messaging. So email first. I love events, specifically like small group targeted events. Once again, leaders roundtables or lunch and learns with a specific team. Tailored webinars with a small group. I love kind of those sessions where you could hit a smaller group of people, but keep the messaging targeted toward them, where it really kicks off that conversation. And it really kind of sets up the sales team to continue to have these meetings and continue to have these conversations in the future. And then LinkedIn ads, great for mid funnel, great for the times where you don't really have that focus of doing one-to-one with that account for that year or for that quarter. Keeping that relationship alive, touched visibility and thought leadership, I think is super important. So just putting that industry content out on LinkedIn, selecting like who you're targeting, I think is always great. I always get good engagement with LinkedIn ads.
Nice, that's awesome. Okay, so the not gifting then. Gifting doesn't make your top 3.
Honestly, I am big on incentivizing engagement. So if I'm having a webinar series and my sales team is just like, we've had such a hard time with retention, we've had such a hard time with like fall off, drop off, with people even not attending even if they've registered. So we're holding webinars to 5, 8, 10 people. Then I'm going to try to incentivize them in any way I can. So I'm going to give away whatever I feel is great, whether if it's like something from the company swag store or I did a Nintendo Switch once. Like if you attend these 4 webinars in
Nice.
this series, I'm going to draw a random name from the attendee list and give away a Nintendo Switch. So make sure that you're joining and engaging in the Q&A in these 4 sessions, you know.
That's not bad. Nice. Yeah, I'm currently planning a webinar. That's actually really helpful to think about how to use it.
It works.
One of the and for ads as well. My good friend Jordan, he's come on here to talk about like LinkedIn ads, and he still has like 25. He uses 25 pound gift card if you like sign up or request a demo, and he said it works. He
Mhm.
says, I know what people think of it, and it's cheap, but it just works and it does the job. So like what you're saying about the incentivization is aligns exactly with
Yeah.
what everyone else is saying. The best gift I've heard of, just a side tangent, it came in from Chelsea Wells. They were making like custom bobbleheads for
That's
people. I looked it up, and you can probably get each one for about $50, which, depending on how big the scale is, isn't good. But maybe you could make those for webinars. Anyway, these are my unfiltered thoughts. We are going off piste here. This is not good.
No, you're all good. I love it.
Challenge 6: content creation. So we touched upon this a few questions ago,
Mhm.
right? Of you only want to be making like you can make industry wide content, for
Mhm.
everyone, but like when it comes to like creating that one-to-one personalized content, how are you approaching that? And also from a tactical perspective, what formats are working well? Is it like videos, white papers, gated content, like what's
Yeah.
working?
For sure. So I like to really think of it through their lens. So I try to be in their shoes. And if I were in their position, what would be resonating with me and how would I like to be engaged with? So if I'm targeting developers, I'm like, would they like to be on a webinar? Would they like to be reading white papers? Executives are not going to want to be in a webinar with 100 people. They're going to want to be doing their own research. So targeting exec ads with like a case study with really hard fact, I think would work better than doing a LinkedIn ad to like a video cartoon graphic. So it depends on who you're really trying to target, but I take who that customer persona is, step into their shoes and be like, how would I want to be engaged? And I think that just like the relevance of the content is the most important thing. It needs to resonate, it needs to land. And obviously, the goals, depending on role and depending on title, is going to be different. So, seeing what worked in the past, so looking at old campaigns, seeing what worked for that specific group, is really important. And also just getting creative. Like I've done some fun things for certain accounts where we wouldn't have thought about it. Like I did a LinkedIn, not a LinkedIn ad. So I did a elevator ad in the elevators of this one client of mine where you scanned a QR code and it led to a microsite with like a content hub, and people were taking pictures of them like everywhere at that company and sending it to our sales director. So he was super happy. And that was something that was not done before at Mongo, but ended up being really successful.
That's awesome. So wait, just so I'm fully clear, an impact like a lift, it goes
Yeah.
up and down, right?
Yeah.
And it was just a
Yeah.
QR code,
It was
almost.
it was actually, so it was a third, how do I describe it? It was a moving graphic. It was a video, but it didn't have any sound. So it kind of had a message like build an app faster than this elevator ride or faster than grabbing coffee on your lunch break. And there was a QR code in the bottom and it was saying scan for more information. From there, it directed to like the microsite for that specific account. And people were loving it and eating it up. It was very low cost too. Honestly, lower cost than a LinkedIn ad. Pushing out a LinkedIn ad for a few weeks. This was running for I think 3 months. Yeah, and it was great. They actually ended up putting it in the hallways and everything, so it worked out
That's
well.
that's banging. I might have to steal that one. Right, question 7. It came in from Alex Humphreys at Ulterior. He asked, "What is one piece of advice? What one piece of advice, sorry, would you give to your past self starting your ABM journey?" Um, I mean, I feel like you were indoctrinated quite early on
Yeah.
into ABM, but like, if you could do it again, like, or what's the best bit of advice you did get when it comes to ABM?
Okay. Well, I guess me being so young, getting thrown into ABM, there was a lot of this imposter syndrome. I was meeting with these big sales leaders trying to get them educated on ABM when I didn't even feel like I really knew or had the confidence in ABM just yet. So it was definitely like throw her into it and she'll figure it out. I would say trust in my ability to problem solve and trust in my business acumen because I had that imposter syndrome and I needed to be confident in myself. I always had it. I am a great problem solver and I'm really creative. I love solving problems. So I think it's actually a perfect career for me. But just really going into these conversations with confidence and like having the humility to know when I need to go out and seek additional resources or seek additional clarity would have been so important.
Always be learning, yeah. Or
Mhm.
ABL. Good, strong. All right, so just for fun, we got a question. We build like a lot of tech at ABM Answered. We're building lots of, well, it'll come out soon, but like if you could invent a tool or technology, like what would
Mhm.
it be and why? If you really can't think of anything to do with ABM, I mean, I'm interested in life
Okay.
technology as well, but like, yeah, I don't know if you've got one.
Yeah. So I've used a bunch of ABM tools. I found some of them useful, some of them not too much, and I've worked with a lot of like contractors with ABM. I don't think there's really a gap that someone hasn't tried to fix within ABM in my perspective right now. So I'll go with outside of ABM if that's okay. But I guess I something I've always thought about. So my parents are in the medical profession. I love studying. So I also studied psychology in college and sociology. I love just thinking about emotions and how they relate to like the human body. I'd love to create like some sort of wearable that could track your blood pressure or your heart rate and your body temperature, notice when there's a stark change, and then have you do some sort of like emotional check-in where it tries to figure out what you're really feeling or what's going on and gives you some sort of conclusion of what they think it is. So something like you're actually not angry, you're just overstimulated or something like that. I think that people are using ChatGPT as kind of a therapist or a friend right now. It'd be really cool if there was a device that prompts you to go do an emotional check-in so that you're not like spiraling in this horrible environment and also just like allows you to give yourself a little bit more grace.
That is phenomenal, and yeah, I've also been using ChatGPT like that recently. Yeah, it's absolutely insane for work and personal stuff. But yeah, okay, I like that a lot. This is a good way to be. Well, you're in the perfect city for it as well, San Fran, right? Are they the king of tech, king or queen of tech, city of tech? I
Yeah,
guess so. Still in America.
maybe I'll
Nice.
do it one day. Who knows?
Well, I'll back you for sure. The last question I'll ask you, Kyla, is: do you have a question for our next guest that you would like me to ask?
Okay, so because we were talking about the elevator ads, let's go with what's one unconventional ABM tactic that surprised you with how well it worked?
Love that. Okay, that's superb. I will get that asked. Kyla, thanks so much for joining.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It was great meeting you as well.